Hi everybody, good morning, it's Jean here. Jean's Block Party 2019. We are on block number 31 this week. Our card trick block. I'm going to get right to it. This is our block for this week. Yeah, what do you think? This is a 9 patch. Believe it or not, this is just a 9 patch. We've done them before. And I have to admit, I was following a pattern from an older book that I have, and I messed it up. I messed it up big time. I didn't subcut it properly, and the triangles weren't working yet, and I got frustrated. And I realized it was probably not the people's fault at all. It was my fault in trying to figure out a pattern. And as you know, I'm a visual person, so I have to. Oh, I must just 1 second. I must say, excuse me, that for this project, I would heartily, if you haven't done it, I would heartily recommend you making your design board, which is a piece of card, and I have 2 pieces of batting. And sometimes I have a lot of threads on here. You can put you can do your packing tape type of thing, and just, you know, or a lint roller, and get rid of them if the little threads bother you. And they were bothering me, so I thought, and I just put a packing tape on it, and, you know, or masking tape or something, and pull up the little threads. I highly recommend it if you want to do it the way I'm doing it this week. You're going to need a design board, or else you're going to do it right next to your sewing machine, because obviously the configuration of this little block here is of paramount importance. That's what makes the illusion of the intersection cards for 4 cards. Now again, us red and white, black and white, 2-color people are having a little bit more of a challenge, as opposed to you scrap quilters who have a blue, red, green, and yellow block, which is a lot more easy. You still have to get the configuration of the half square and quarter square triangles right, no matter what color. But with the 2-color blocks, you're going to have to be very aware of a contrast. In fact, as I say, I had to pull, other than my fabric I have that I've been using for my block party, I had to pull 2 other fabrics. I pulled this fabric here and that fabric there out of my stash, because the others weren't quite as contrasty, because it's a bit difficult to get. I mean, there's a million shades of red, and I was very pleased with the way this turned out. But that's the only thing you have to be aware of. Every seam is a bias, or every edge is a bias. Again, that doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, don't do this block. This is not hard. It's a 9 patch with just a few quarter square triangle units in it. Again, what is that word I want? It just went out of my head. the configuration. Isn't that funny? I'm having more and more senior moments. I'm getting worried. Yeah, I'm getting worried. Well, no, I'm not getting worried. But it's like I can't think of my kids' names. I have a whole bunch of kids. Why can't I think of their names? Anyway, the configuration, you have to really pay attention. And I hope I didn't do it too fast. I don't think I did. But however you watch the video, you're going to have to stop and go, oh, okay, that triangle went there, that type of thing. And then break it down, which I've done into 1 patch here, the first unit in our 9 patch, the 2nd unit in our 9 patch. Just do it that way, and then it's easy. It really is. It's just putting a 9 patch together. But isn't it effective? I used a bright white background. I was thinking about it. I haven't used any of my white background, and I thought, well, I'm going to use that for sashing. It's a tone on tone, which I have a million yards of. I think I might sash mine in red with white little cornerstones. I might just do that to change it up a little bit. You know, because my white, I did that with my 2018 block party. It was pretty. I've expected, you know, I sash it. I think I'm going to sash mine in red, a red, not a red solid, a red tone on tone. But for this week, I did put a bright white background. You need 5 fabrics. For you scrap people, you need 5 different fabrics, your background, and then 4 obviously different card trick patterns but they need to be a smaller scale, obviously, because if you have a large floral, this was the largest pattern I have, but it worked. It's like a small to medium print. These are little tiny prints that almost read solid. That's a burgundy with white dots, a red with white dots, and then a small print, and then a small to medium size print. If you have a large floral, you're not going to see the cards. So you're going to have to be aware of that. That's the only thing you're going to have to be aware of. And then, of course, when it comes to it, the cutting, which is almost everything is cut exactly the same. And you'll see it in my tutorial. Almost exactly the same, with the exception of the background. You have to cut one more fabric. But I've shown you that, and then you have to subcut and keep organized. I like the way I did it with my little pieces of paper. If you need to pin them on your triangles, because the triangles that we have, two size triangles that we eventually get, which is this one and this one, they're not a lot of difference. I can tell the difference, you can, but if you get mixed up, you're going to get messed up. So again, just it's a delightful block. I love it. I would highly recommend you making your little design board. Thank you, Linda, lifesaver. Yeah, so that is block number 31. Just one block this week, and I think I had managed to do it in one video. I haven't edited it yet. If it isn't, it's in 2 videos. From maybe now on, I have a very, very busy schedule for the next actually few months with our ministry work. Our kids are having babies. I have showers to go to. Lots of things going on in my schedule. I might be just doing one block a week, which isn't a bad thing, because a lot of you guys, I've gotten a message, a couple message people are sort of taking off for the summer, which is understandable. We're outside, we're gardening, we're all going on vacations. So I might just do one block from now on. Again, we have 11 blocks to go, 11 more weeks or something like that. I'll see how that works out. That will take us into the summer. I'll see how that works out, because I think I said I have enough videos you can sort of watch reruns, and I'm still going to be doing my my Patreon people little videos and little projects for them. So I'm busy here in the sewing room, but don't hold your breath as far as blocks. And I was going to say, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, well, what do I do now? You can stop at block 30, and we have 30 blocks, which is a 5 across and 6 down. That's a lot of, that's a nice size quilt if you want to put your blocks together. But and weight, whatever. But I'll do how I want to. I have a few other projects. I'm be doing my rooster collage quilt. He's done. I'm taping this on Thursday. You'll be seeing it on Sunday. My rooster collage quilt is done. I've been putting those videos up. That was fun. That was just a small little wall hanging. And whatever projects I am going to be doing, if I do embark on some, I think I'm going to just do some smaller ones. You know me, I do these huge, great big projects. But I wanted to get to maybe in a couple of weeks. I want to ask your opinion, you guys, because I know you comment. Okay, so anyway, that was block number 31. This could be a consequent, yeah, a upcoming block, a paper pieced block. I just messed about with this pattern. It's a I had to tape 2 pieces of paper together to make a 10-inch square, and then I've done it myself, so I don't know how to do it like on the computer to download this or whatever. You'd have to make your pattern yourself. But I would give exclusive instructions on how to paper piece. If you remember, if you're following the Elephant Abstractions quilt, you saw me paper piecing, and a lot of you are like, oh no, but a couple of you have said, oh, can you show that? Well, this would be a fairly simple block to do in a paper piece project, ending up a 9.5-inch square with the seam allowances. And it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces of fabric that you have to learn how to paper piece. But again, that would probably easily take 2 videos, part 1 and part 2, of me showing you how to do a paper pieced project. Not that hard, and you just have to keep organized again and figure out, and you really need to take your time to do a paper piece project. My whole elephant, Charlotte my elephant, the whole thing was paper pieced, and I went along like that. But this is a very basic, simple project. Again, tell me if you would like it. if not, if it's too much, I kept saying that my card trick block is a complicated block, and you'll find that it's not hard, but you really have to, really have to take your time. That's why I just did one block, and that it would be sort of the same with this. So just leave a comment below if you're following along with our block party, if you would want to embark on a paper piece project, and if so, then I'll tell you the things you need. There's a few tools. If you don't get them, you can do without them, but they make it a little bit easier. But if not, I don't want you buying any tools, special stuff. We can improvise, but tell me if you would like that. I'm going to make this up into a, based on your replies, I'm going to make this up into a block just so you can see my colorways, to see if you would like that. Yeah, so let me know if you would like, if my block party people would like a paper piece project, a foundation piece project. It's not a beginner project, but I got faith. I have faith in you guys. But if you don't want to do it, I don't want to do it either. So anyway, that's that. I gotta go. Block number 31, our card trick. We got tricks up our sleeve this week, and I hope you love it, and I hope you take your time. Don't sew when you're tired or you're angry at your husband. Don't do that. And there you go. Have at it. Our card trick puzzle. Block number 31. So I will see you next week, folks. Thanks again. See you later. Bye. Here we are with our card trick block. Let me put that here. And as you can see, we have lots of different fabrics. We have 5 different fabrics. And the most important thing, as I've been saying, is the contrast of our fabrics. And our 2 color quilt people, my red and white, have to do a little bit extra homework to figure out the different contrasts. I actually had to pull this one and this one from my my room here because I didn't feel I had enough contrast in the fabrics I had. We don't need a lot of fabric for this. It's just going to end up a 9.5 inch block. So we're going to have a few extra pieces, but I've pulled this for me, for my contrast, for my 4 intersecting cards. I am using a bright white for my background, which I'm naming Fabric A. And what we're wanting to do for Fabric A, our background, is we're cutting 2 3 7/8 inch squares. Okay, remember the 7/8 of an inch is the little line right before the number 4. Right before, you see that? Right before the 4. The little line, 3 7/8 inch. You want 2 of them. And then out of Fabric A, which is our background fabric, whichever it may be, you're going to be cutting 1 4 1/4 inch square. Now, you can pretty much tell the difference as I have it here. I did this on purpose. I have the bigger and the bigger and the smaller, the bigger and the smaller, the bigger and the smaller, the bigger and the smaller. Because now, for 4 different fabrics, for your 4 different card fabrics, you're going to cut the exact same thing. You are cutting from 1, 2, 3, 4. You are cutting 1 3 7/8 inch square, and you're cutting 1 4 1/4 inch square. Almost the exact same as Fabric A, but we've just cut 2 3 7/8 inch. From each of our cards we're cutting 1 3 7/8 inch and 1 4 1/4. Now all of this fabric, as I said, we're going to have just a few bits left over. All of this fabric is going to now be sub-cut. And that's where not the confusion, but you really have to stay organized. And if you don't have a design board at this moment, I would recommend highly to have a design board, because what am I going to do now? I'm going to subcut my bits, and I'll show you what I'm going to do, but then I'm going to put them on my design board. Visually, it's a 9 patch. It's a simple 9 patch, but you have to keep the configuration of our cards so they get that interlocking look going on. So now I'm going to be subcutting these, and I'll go very slowly and show you what I do. So as you can see, I've already subcut my units here, just said for time, but I want to, and they're exactly the same. We've cut our cards exactly the same, okay? I'm gonna tell you in detail what you're wanting to cut, but right now, because it's slightly different, these are exactly the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, which I'll show you, but our fabric A is just slightly different because we have another piece here. So our background fabric, we have cut our 2 3 7/8 inch squares and our 1 4 1/4 inch squares. Now with 2 of our 7/8 inch squares, we're going to be cutting those 2. We're going to be cutting 2. I can just scratch them together. We're going to be cutting 2 on the diagonal of our smaller 3 7/8 inch squares. We're going to be lining them up on our table here, and then we're going to be putting our ruler, remember, diagonal to diagonal, 1 thread in or so. And then we're going to open our cutter and cut our 3 7/8 inch background square in half diagonally. So we end up with 4 triangles, okay, of our 3 7/8. Now I think this is a very good way to keep organized here. If you wanted to pin these here, like I said before, so our 3 7/8, because they look very similar. Now we're taking our background, our 4 1/4 inch square, lining it up on our board, and then we're going to be cutting that twice on the diagonal. We're going to be cutting this way and this way to make 4 smaller triangles. So I'm cutting it that way, lifting my ruler, going diagonal to diagonal, and cutting it this way. So we end up with 4 triangles from our 4 1/4 inch. And again, I find it very much better to keep it this way, because look at all of this fabric we have for one block. We're going to have a few left over, but this is how I keep track. Now, every single one of these is exactly the same for fabric B, C, D, and E. You are going from your 3 7/8 inch square, from your 3 7/8 inch square, you're going to be cutting that in half once diagonally from your 3 7/8 inch square. So you end up with 2 larger triangles, okay? 2 larger triangles. 2 larger triangles from each one of your fabrics. From your 4 1/4 inch square, your larger square, you're going to be cutting that on the diagonal twice, just as I showed you on our white. We're cutting the larger 4 1/4 inch on the diagonal twice for all of our cards. There's 4, there's 4, there's 4. Now we're going to get our design board. Can't emphasize enough how important it is to me to have a design board. Maybe I could have made this a little bit bigger because there's a lot of seams in this, but it's a basic 9 patch. We're going to be putting together a basic 9 patch. But obviously for this block, which I guess is deemed a bit more difficult because of the configuration. So now what we are going to be doing is having this all lovely, I have it exactly, the exact how it's been cut. Here's my design board. Now I'm going to be just laying out my quilt block here. So now with this is a tone on tone. I have to be careful which is the proper side. That's it. So you can't really see it. We're gonna be making a 9 patch. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 blocks, and that's our 9 patch. So our first one is a basic half square triangle. So I deem fabric E here, my darker one up here, as my first card. So there is our half square triangle. Okay, I'm just laying them out right now. There's our half square triangle. Again, we're working with bias seams. I have no qualms about that. I'm going to go starch my fabrics when I take them over. It'll be fine. Now, fabric E again, my larger triangle, I'm going to be putting it right there. This is our second block in our top row. Okay? And then I'm going to be taking a small background fabric, a small triangle. We have 4 of these. We cut 4 of them. So I'm going to be taking one, figure out which is the proper side. Here we go. And I'm going to be putting it up here. We've created this unit before. We have made this unit before, right? Now, I'm going to be taking, say, fabric B. I want that opposite. Whatever your configuration is. I'm going to be taking the smaller of the triangle. And we're just making this unit here. We've already done this before. Remember? So now there is our second block on the top row. Now we're going to do our third block on our top row. So I'm going to be taking from fabric B, I'm going to be taking my larger piece that we've cut, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take my larger piece over here from my background, and there is a half square triangle. So we have 1 block, 2 block, 3 blocks. Okay? Now, the second row is, I'm going to be taking a small, a small little triangle from my background, figure out which is the correct size, and put that over here. This is our second row, my left-hand block in my second row. Now, I'm going to be finishing my block, my fabric E block, and I'm going to be taking this block, and I'm going to put it right there. So you can see my top card. Oops. There we go. You can see my top card forming. Okay, this is my block. And now I'm going to take my next piece of fabric for this block here, which I deem fabric D, this one. It's a little bit confusing, so you have to really keep at it. So there is my block for fabric D. Okay? So we have 4 pieces we have 4 pieces in the center block here. Now this is where you're really going to have to keep track. So now from fabric E, to finish up this card piece here, this is my second block. Okay? This is my second block. This is fabric E. So you'll see it coming together. And then my fabric D is on this side. Okay? And then from my fabric C, to finish up this block, you can see it coming together. You have to be very, very careful. We're making a little hourglass block here, this center block. Just go block by block. Don't be overwhelmed. But get your placement right. Just watch this over and over, or pause it and get your placement right. And then it's not very, very difficult, as you can see. So now we're wanting we're wanting a larger half square triangle of our fabric B, which is over here. We're doing this piece here. We're just working in blocks, okay? And then a smaller background, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. And then we're coming on to fabric C. We're going to do our next block. This block is done here, okay? Now we're coming up to fabric C, and we're taking a smaller triangle, and we're putting it like that. So you can see, I'm just breaking this down into units. That's the difficult part of this. It's keeping track of your units. But you can see my cards intersecting, taking place. But it's basically a half square, basically a 9 patch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, we'll finish it up. And I have another half square triangle, a larger block, a larger background, which is my proper side. This one goes in the corner here. And then my fabric D, which is my other half square triangle, which goes like that. You can see it coming together, right there. Now I have a fabric D, which is a smaller one, which is, let me just see, no, sorry. I'm doing fabric C, because I'm going to finish that up. The center block has our 4 fabrics. So if you've messed up, if you don't have 4 fabrics in your center block, okay, you're going to mess up. So all of the colors are hitting the same color, okay? So my fabric A, 1, 2, 3, 4 seams are 4 colors are matching. 1, 2, 3, 4 colors are matching. 1, 2. Now let's finish up fabric. This one, fabric D, which is, I'm putting that one here. Fabric D goes that way, and then my last half square, my last little triangle on the bottom, sort of the mirror image of this one. And then this fabric, my larger piece here, my larger piece which is there, goes like that. This is my bottom middle row block unit. Hopefully you can see this. And then we're going to finish up by my larger square on the end, my white background, the end here, and my half square, my larger C fabric, or whatever you deem. And there, with all the units without the seams, is our card trick block. A lot. You can see why it's not a beginner quilt. Not hard, but the configuration, obviously, you need a design board. I can't be saying to you, okay, sew fabric C to unit A, Maybe that's how it's described, but I think the design board makes this very, very doable. And there, look, all my intersecting, I like it. There's enough contrast. I like this. You have to be aware. Now, by all means, if you have a pink, blue, red, and green block, you're off and running. It's much easier. With my reds, I really had to be careful. So now, what am I going to do? I am just going to go over to my sewing machine, put this right next to it, and I'm going to concentrate on one unit at a time. I'm going to sew this unit and then put it back on my board, and I'm going to sew that unit, put it back on my board. So I have everything right in front of me right now. Now you do have some squares left over, but to me, I'd rather cut larger ones. It's easier to cut a triangle from a square than cut triangles, you know, and just waste a few. But there's a few just left over. But there you go. Here is my block. I'm going to go over to my sewing machine right now, and we're going to put this bad boy together. I have my design board right in front of me. I'm sitting right in front of my machine. I'm rested. I'm okay. And all I'm doing is putting together a 9-patch, okay? But, yeah, a 9-patch, like, woo! So I'm going to start on this unit here. I'm just going to lift up this half square triangle unit here, put my design board over to the side here, and I'm going to, this is a bias edge, so just be very, very careful. It matches up. Let me see if that's, yeah, it matches up beautifully. It matches up really beautifully. We've cut it perfectly. And I'm just going to start with my 1/4 inch foot over here. I know this is a 1/4 inch from my needle to my plate, so I can make a perfect 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to go very slowly. And again, if you need a leader because you don't want you to get your fabric chewed into that hole, I don't have that. I just have one hole, not a slot. Very slowly, not pulling. Didn't pin it. Just slowly, go very slowly. I can't reiterate that enough. Just go very slowly. This is a bias seam. Right off. Pinch your fabric and trim, pull it out, and there is a half square triangle. Now we are going to be just gently finger press that. We are going to be trimming these units down. I'm going to go put that back over as it came off, making sure I'm not doing it that way or I'm not doing it that way, making sure that that's where it belongs. I'll come down. So I'll just come down here. So now what am I going to do? I'm going to take, this is a 3-piece unit, right? So I'm going to be taking pretty side over to pretty side. We've done our configuration. We've done our configuration. Make sure that you're sewing the proper seam. You're sewing this seam here. So pretty side over, and then grab that, and that's your seam. You might want to put a pin in it if you get confused. and then start at that square edge, 1/4 inch seam, and right off. Open it up, lay it down, push the dark over to the dark, and then what do you have? Do you want to be looking? Yeah, you might think, oh, she's really, making a big cake job of this thing, but it's very, very important, as you know. So now I can visually see that I can just bring this piece over here, pretty side to pretty side. We're taking one unit at a time, and because we've sewn it beautifully, I've pushed that, finger press that dark up to the seam up to the dark, so I can just turn it around like this. I can scratch it together, so cut and sewn, and it fits perfectly. And I'm sewing this center seam, 1/4 inch, and I'm stitching. Scratch it together. I'm stitching the seam towards the dark, as you can see. And right off. And then I'll just very carefully place that back. Just finger press that unit up to the dark and lay it on there. Concentrating now on the center block. Basically, it's the exact same thing. I'm going to be putting pretty side over to pretty side and sewing this. This is called a 1/4 square triangle unit. Sewing that 1/4 square triangle unit, 1/4 inch seam very carefully. And again, because these are neither light nor dark, I'm not worried about how I'm going to press them to the dark side, but I am going to alternate. The seam. So this one can go that way, and I'll put that up there. That's going that way, and then I'm going to go pretty side to pretty side over this one. Oh, my 2 dots are together. That's sweet. Starting at the square end. Configuring these. Let me see how this gets configured. That one's going that way. The seam will go over here. My configuration, all my 4 colors are together. So now, having finger pressed the center unit here, we're working on the center unit. The seam is going that way. The seam is going that way. I'm going to lift this up, pretty sides together, scratch them together, and nest that seam right in the middle. I can feel it. Scratch the edges together and stitch a 1/4 inch. I'm not pulling. I've just nested those seams. One is going one way, right over that intersection. One is going the other way. And then when I go to press that, a lot of people on this unit here, on this hour block unit, they cut this. They cut that. I will probably iron that seam open. That's what I will do. I'm going to iron that center seam open there, on that unit there. down properly. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over, my units are sewn together. I'm going to go over to my ironing board. I'm going to iron exactly as you see them here. I'm going to very carefully set my seams here, go over, nudge this up here to the dark, nudge that over to the dark, and put back on my board exactly as I have sewn them. I'm gonna press my seams and set them, and then put them back on my board exactly as I've sewn them, and then we can start cutting down the pieces and trimming them up.